All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of Elections Weekly. I'm your host, Eric Cunningham. And with us this week, we have our full panel as usual. We got Dylan Brown, Joe Szymanski, and Kraz Grinitz. We're excited to bring this episode to you today. This is going to be a rare episode for us. It's going to be more international focused. We've had some international news this week that really warrants being covered. It's been a fairly slow week in American politics, but specifically, we have two shocking stories for the most part coming out. We're going to talk about the Boris Johnson affair later, but we're going to lead off today with the shocking assassination of Shinzo Abe, the former prime minister of Japan. Last night, we were all up late last night. We saw this come into our feeds, and we were kind of shocked at what happened. So I'll lead into, before we get into the kind of discussion here, lead into the background here. Shinzo Abe is the longest serving prime minister in Japan's history. He served for 9 years following the Liberal Democratic Party's reascent into governance in 2012 after a very brief period of control by the opposition. He basically oversaw Japan's recovery from the Great Recession, among other things, kind of rapprochement, more focused on American cooperation with the American government, on the military, trying to focus more on getting rid of the more pacifistic element of Japan, and kind of a more adversarial relationship with China in particular. Also, wasn't really huge friends with South Korea over that same time period. That's pretty typical for Japan for a lot of this, but he stepped down several years ago due to health issues. And this week, Japan, where it's fairly routine for officials to campaign on the street, do what we would call stump speeches with minimal security, was approached by a gunman wielding a homemade gun that resembles a shotgun, was shot and was killed. It's fairly certain that he bled out fairly quickly. They didn't announce the death until 5 hours later. This just seems to be fairly typical for Japan. They don't announce the death until a coroner is confirmed that a death has taken place. He was 67 years old. It's resulted in some fairly big ripples in the international community. Abe is known as a right-wing, conservative sort of politician, very much a nationalist, economically very conservative, but had a very good relationship with a lot of other governments around the world, particularly with India, which has declared a day of mourning, among other things. President Obama has spoken out favorably about Abe after this, former President Trump as well. Prime Minister Boris Johnson, even Vladimir Putin has expressed shock over this.
Boris Johnson.
Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Yeah, sorry, that's crazy. Yeah, this sort of happened. So the suspect. Yeah, the suspect was apprehended immediately afterwards. There was little resistance. It seems like, bizarrely, this was not a political motivated assassination. It seems, oddly enough, if the guy is to be trusted, he had a personal grudge against Shinzo Abe because he believed he was part of a religious organization that he did not like. That's what he is saying, at least. We don't know if that's actually the case. There's certainly going to be an investigation and probably a hanging afterwards. Given Japan's legal system,
I forgot about that part.
They execute by hanging, a long drop, and then a sudden stop, as it would be. But basically, it's very odd. Is that some of this was recorded on video? It's fairly apparent that this is very, very bad early on. We don't know how many ramifications this will have, but I will note this falls in line with several other assassinations that have occurred in other countries in the democratic world, specifically in the United Kingdom, where several members of parliament have been assassinated and killed in constituent meetings. This falls fairly clearly within that same pattern, where he was out speaking in public, not a ton of security. Japan's not a country with a lot of gun violence. There's maybe 10 gun deaths a year. The gun laws there are so strict. The Yakuza don't even use guns because it's literally not worth the risk. But I'll go ahead and throw it to the panel here. What do you guys think of this? I know we were all kind of in shock seeing this last night, just how sudden and how seemingly random this event was. Obviously, Abe has a strong legacy as Japan's longest serving prime minister, but they have elections coming up soon too. They're electing basically the equivalent of their Senate in Japan. That's what he was out campaigning for.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously it's a really sad moment. As Eric mentioned, Abe was even if I think for politicians that maybe did not agree with him politically, he was definitely a well-respected leader of Japan. Again, definitely someone who had definitely kind of reached a figurehead status in the nation, and didn't even resign out of political reasons, resigned for health reasons. He had known, I believe, to have heart issues by the time his prime ministership was clearly coming to an end. But yeah, this is a very heartbreaking thing. The part of the story that really intrigued me, not just the fact that this was not really seems to be, if we believe the murderer, is that this was not a politically motivated shooting. The fact it's more even interesting as well that apparently he missed the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Abe turned around, he got him in both the chest and the neck with the casings from the shotgun. So really, it is just a truly terrible tragedy. It's been a long time since we've had a world leader. Obviously, Abe is former prime minister, but still a political figurehead like Abe. It's been a long time in the modernized Western worlds, Eastern worlds, the kind of the global superpowers of the day, that we've had a figurehead and leader like Abe be assassinated. It's been, again, quite a long time. I think I'm trying to even wrap my head around, even just, across Asia and across Europe and in America. Really, I feel like the last one was it Bobby Kennedy in America, the last kind of political figurehead that was assassinated and killed. Obviously, there were attempted assassinations against both Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan that both failed. But I believe Bobby Kennedy was the last one.
Somebody tried to assassinate Gerald Ford?
Yes, someone tried to assassinate Gerald Ford.
I did not know that.
Yeah, someone tried to kill him too.
But the one I would think of would be probably I can't remember the former prime minister of Pakistan. I can't remember her name, but that's the closest parallel I could think here in terms of a major world leader.
When was Rabin assassinated in Israel?
98 or 99 or something.
That'd be the
another good one.
Yeah,
Rabin's probably the last big one before this.
We've had a period of stability in the democratic Western world, whatever you want to call it. That's lasted quite a while here. There's the assassination attempt on George W. Bush. I remember there was a bombing attempt that was foiled, among other things. The thing that got me the thing that got me watching the video is that first, if you're not familiar with the sound of a gunshot, which unless you're watching movies, you're probably not extremely familiar with that. It'd be easy to assume that it was just a noise. If you're not familiar with your first thought is, if you're in Japan, is your first thought upon hearing that, oh, that's a gun, or oh, that's a car, some sort of issue with a car wheel. It's just extremely shocking. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best word for it. I didn't hear about the motivation. I assumed it was political, which I thought was extremely odd because I know Abe left office very popular. So he's not the type of leader you would expect that to happen to for political reasons. But
yeah, I mean, you would expect if it was going to be political, it would either be the Communist Party or something along that line doing, which doesn't happen. There's not a whole lot of left-wing violence in Japan.
There's not a lot of left-wing people in Japan.
Yeah. Well, Abe was more aligned with the ultranationalists. They had no quarrel with him. And the cults, most of the cults have been executed, the cult leaders and whatnot. So it's who would have done something like this? That's what I was thinking as well. It's it doesn't make any sense. As a motivation, it seemed like there'd be very, very little reason to do this beyond a personal grudge or some sort of, lone person.
Yeah,
I don't drag this out too long because we do have other topics, but I thought we should open up with that and kind of discuss it because it's very obviously Abe was still very involved with the Liberal Democratic Party of Japan, basically the dominant party of Japan. It holds probably a similar place in Japanese politics like the Liberal Party in Canada in terms of sheer dominance over the decades, even more so than that. Probably the closest comparison would be the political, Mexico's Industrial Revolutionary Party for a long time. It's very rare for the Liberal Democratic Party to lose in Japan. And it's even rarer for someone to last as prime minister as long as Shinzo Abe did. No one has lasted. They tend to have new prime ministers fairly often, even as the party in charge stays most of the same. But again, we'll keep you updated on this as it goes on. Japan, we expect them. They already have the culprit. He was apprehended without really a struggle, according to the video. We don't know what the implications will be on the elections in Japan going on. There could be implications for future security of Japanese politicians. I would possibly think that might be considered. The security was clearly fairly loose. Japan is known for having fairly informal politicking. Politicians are able to mingle with the general public. It was just a very unusual situation. And it's definitely a turning point in Japanese politics. There's not been a major national figure that's been assassinated in Japan since 1960, when the leader of, I believe, the Socialist Party was murdered with a sword. In a very similarly kind of shocking incident. But we'll go ahead and move on to the UK, which saw its own resolution of a long-standing political situation as Boris Johnson has resigned as leader of the Conservative Party. Among other things, they had a scandal over Partygate, is what it was called, over COVID restrictions. They've had scandal after scandal after scandal. Numbers have been routinely dropping in the polls to where the Labour Party, which had been left for dead following the last election, now leads by double digits in the polls. Goes to show how much talk about a permanent majority is in any Western or democratic country, aside from maybe Japan. I mean, at this point, but it's like, we saw this happen, and then most recently was over a whip that had been appointed despite known sexual misconduct allegations against him, and that was the final straw. You saw most of Boris Johnson's cabinet resign, leaving him with little support. There was talk for a while that he may try to dissolve Parliament, which would then Parliament would obviously not want to be dissolved at this point, which would take it to the Queen, among other things, who actually does have the authority to intervene in the situation and tell Boris. Like, it was like we were getting into genuine constitutional crisis territory.
To be fair, Eric, I think the entire conversation about a snap election was just happening in our group chat.
Yeah, it's just happening. Yeah.
Okay,
The snap, I never
funny,
took the snap
though.
election.
It was very funny.
Yeah.
It would have been very funny if you called a snap election, because like the Tories are in the dumps in the polls right now. So it would have been like
I would
truly
be-
a
That
suicide
would have
mission.
absolutely just been like a firebomb. Like, it's like, screw it. If
I'm going down,
this
I'm taking
thing's
you
going
with
down,
me.
You all are coming down with me, damn it.
But see, here's the problem: is that again the Parliament could have very easily said, a majority of people in Parliament, like, no, we don't want a new election. That's something they could have done. This would have genuinely taken it to the Queen, who would basically have to side with either Boris Johnson, who's like, I want to dissolve Parliament, or Parliament like, no, I don't want to be dissolved. This is actually genuinely the Queen's role, the monarch's role in the United Kingdom, is to deal with constitutional crises like this.
You know what? The Queen
It's
doesn't get
really
enough.
interesting.
The Queen doesn't get enough to do. I think we should take this problem to her.
Yeah, we should take the problem to our potentially dying 97-year-old Queen. Anyway,
This is
but
86,
yeah,
87.
this now is a fascinating turning point in British politics, though, because obviously with the official resignation / forcing out of Boris Johnson, that leads to a leadership election, and that means more fun and games and more politicking and more likely dumb shit to come down from it. So, the four names that have so far declared, these are not going to be all the candidates, but the four names that have so far declared themselves. I don't believe that Britain has ever had a minority prime minister. Is that? I believe it's only ever been white individuals. I believe.
I'll be shocked if that wasn't the case.
I'm pretty positive that's
I'm
the case.
pretty sure. But
Yeah.
interestingly enough, 3 of the 4 candidates declared so far are minority candidates, and two of those 3 minority candidates are both women. Obviously, the big name that has already declared himself, arguably the early favorite, Rishi Sunak, one of Johnson's more higher up. He was the chancellor of the. I'm not even going to try.
Exchequer.
I'm not.
Exchequer.
I'm not gonna try and pronounce that. But he was. I believe he was part of the Treasury. That was his big deal. He was the guy signing off on a lot of the bonuses to English individuals and the checks. If you remember the hitherto expected Trump check bounce. that we talked about in the 2020 election, where Trump put his name on the checks that gave $2,000 to a bunch, $1,200, to a bunch of Americans. Basically, that's what Sunak did when I believe he sent out around 2,000 pounds to every adult English, British, or UK individual in response to COVID. He's the early favorite. And then there were three others. Kemi Badenoch, she was the former Minister of State for Leveling Up Communities. She's the MP from Saffron or Walden. Suella Braverman is another candidate. She is the MP for Fareham. She is the current Attorney General for England and Wales. So, and then you have Tom Tugendhat, who is the current chair of the Foreign Affairs and Select Committee. I believe all four of these, unlike Boris Johnson, who comes from Uxbridge, all four of these come from relatively safe Conservative Party strongholds. All of them had around 40-plus point majorities in the 2019 election. These were unlike Boris's, where there were some concerns that even in the current environment, where Labour is, as Eric said, is leading by high double digits, that Johnson's Uxbridge and location seat could go to the Labour Party and flip.
God, that would be so much fun.
That would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. But that would not be the case for any of those four. Of course, like I said, those are not the only four. The big one that we're kind of waiting on right now seems to be Liz Truss. She was Johnson's former. She is the current foreign secretary within the Johnson government. Well, now the former Johnson government. She's the foreign secretary, though. Someone who's a little bit more right wing. She has been someone who has kind of gotten a name brand for basically wailing against the idea of the wokeness coming to British shores. So, but early polling right now shows it to if Truss were to get in, would show it to be a race between Truss and Sunak if they were to go head to head. Interestingly enough, they both also have the most endorsements from current MPs right now. Tom Tugendhat, though, does have a similar level of endorsements right now. Jeremy Hunt is another individual expected to get in. Watch Penny Mordaunt as well, the former defense secretary, another person who's been pretty highly rumored to get in as well. But otherwise, it does seem to be looking like there's going to be a pretty large group of applicants for this, for the leadership position. We're looking probably potentially as high as 10, which would be that would be an interesting one. That would be an interesting way to do a leadership election for sure, because you have to remember, because this is Britain and they have better election rules than parts of America, they do ranked choice voting. Whoever has to be leader has to win by a majority. So they win.
And only party members can vote.
Only party members can vote.
Isn't I thought this was just MPs. I thought the Tories are just MPs.
The Tories might be just MPs.
Yeah, they're just MPs, which makes it interesting because apparently
so the third stage is when only two candidates remain. Conservative Party members vote on them on a one vote basis.
Okay.
And again, you have to actually pay to be a member of the Conservative Party. It's not that expensive to be a member of the Conservative Party, but unlike here, where you can just write in where you can be a Democrat from San Miguel County, be like, yes, I'm a Republican and I want to vote in the Republican primary solely to get rid of Lauren Boebert. You can actually do that in the UK if you pay, and that seems to be a barrier for some people.
Well, you don't want to just pay 20, and then you have to pay you have to fill out some forms, and then when you want to,
that's a lot of work,
and then you want to inevitably switch back, then you gotta pay the £20 fee again. You got to fill out more forms, and it's just a pain in the butt.
Well, the thing is too. It sounds like what's going to happen is the candidates are going to need the support of 10 to 20 members of Parliament. And there are about, 350 Conservative members of Parliament. So if you do the math, that means that if there are 10 people, then some of them are just going to get knocked out by not having enough endorsements.
There are currently 358 members of the Conservative and Unionist Party.
I want to point out. So we actually rules have been here. Rules have been given according to a Daily Telegraph article. The plan is to have a new prime minister by September 5th, which is just under 2 months from today. And actually by this Monday, election plans will be rubber stamped by this 1922 committee, which is the committee that sets up these leadership elections for the Conservative Party. By the 12th nomination close, MPs will need the backing of 10 or 20 other members of parliament to enter the leadership race. And then by the 13th, the first round of voting begins. The candidates with fewer than 36 MPs with support must withdraw. Then a second round of voting occurs. The last place candidate gets dropped out. All remaining candidates are then grilled by the entire party under the committee. And then a third round occurs, along with basically continual rounds until we get down to 2 candidates. That's when the House of Commons breaks over. And then the final 2 candidates will face off around late July, mid-August, summertime between late July, mid-August, where they would face the Tory party members in that party-wide vote by post. So, and then by Monday, September 5th, the new Conservative leader will be announced. I would bet that vote would be probably you'd have to turn in your ballot. I would bet by mid to late August, I would bet, is when party members would have to turn in their ballot. Between those final 2 candidates, again, most expected to be between Sunak and Liz Truss, but when you kind of have this vacuum that you have right now in England, surprises can certainly happen, and it's not a long time, but there is still certainly a weekend to go where beers, food, and wine will be served to many MPs from those who want to run in. It'll be really interesting. Obviously, Sunak and Truss seem to be the most kind of well-placed, but there could be other candidates as well. I should say that Tom Tugendhat does have some pretty high regard around the British media that he could be maybe a surprise candidate in this race. But right now, I'd say at least expected between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss in that final round where it would go to the party members.
And here's a reminder. Now, granted, the Labour Party has different rules, but it's worth noting Jeremy Corbyn was only able to be in that leadership contest because a couple of members of parliament gave him basically pity. Like, okay, yeah, sure, you want to run for the Labour Party leader? Sure, that's cute. We'll let you run for the leader. And then he ends up leading them into the bottom of the sea, ultimately. But it's that we don't expect that to happen with the Conservative Party, but you never know. That is what happened with the Labour Party. No one expected Jeremy Corbyn to be the nominee then. It's entirely possible something like that happens here. But we, like Joe said, we have expected favorites.
They accidentally nominate Boris Johnson again.
I think Sunak's an interesting candidate. He's only 42 years old. He had a scandal of his own.
Good. He'll fit right in.
Apparently, his wife. So, no context for this. He's married to the daughter of an Indian billionaire. His wife's family is like extraordinarily wealthy.
Yes.
And I don't think his family is wealthy. I think he's independently wealthy and then married her, but like I don't think his family is like wealthy or anything. And anyway, so long story short, he's like incredibly wealthy, and his wife was like claiming that she didn't live in the UK to get tax breaks. Like she claimed that her actual residence was
she was able to avoid paying £20 million in
£20 million in tax.
And let's be clear. When we mean very wealthy, we mean among the 250 wealthiest families in the UK in all likelihood. That's the estimate. I believe it's closer to 222nd in the most recent one. This is a substantial amount of money.
Yes, so very wealthy family.
She is the daughter of Narana Murthy, who is the founder of Infosys. I forget. I don't know what it is. It is a multinational technology company. Let me see how much it's valued.
Well, my question is, look, the people of the UK, right? I mean, it's been a while since they've seen a real aristocrat as prime minister. So who was the last? This is a good question. Who was the last prime minister of the UK to be like just a true like uber wealthy aristocrat? Was it Anthony?
My instinct.
Yes, it was Anthony Eden.
Oh,
he was the third son of the 7th and 5th baronet of something. I don't know. Sounds like he may have been the last one.
Mm-hmm. It's worth noting the richest British prime minister, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, whatever that's worth, was Edward Stanley, who was the 14th Earl of Derby. That's worth about £444 million. Let's just put it this way: is that Rishi Sunak is worth closer to double that through his family. So this is like the breaking the ceiling off that record right there.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
Sunak
I'm glad we're breaking records. This is important.
And Derby is most known as Stanley is most known as the prime minister who would eventually be replaced by Benjamin Disraeli. He was replaced as basically in the he was in a minority government. Disraeli was the chancellor of the exchequer, and then Disraeli became prime minister. So this is roughly that same time period where you had sort of this change where the remnants of this aristocratic sort of very sort of prime minister role became more of like the House of Commons we know today, where it's a very strong House of Commons with a very people, or not necessarily people, but like populist sort of less aristocratic, less what's the aristocratic actually be the proper term here? Less aristocratic House of Commons leadership.
Yeah. So I looked up. So Sunak's wife, Akasha Murthy, has just a barely under 1% stake, a 0.91% stake in Infosys. That stake is valued at 900 million American dollars. Over an under 1% stake in this company. It is valued at 900 million American dollars.
And that's not even including all their other assets, right? Like he was a Goldman Sachs banker. Like he has plenty of assets himself as well.
So he and his wife jointly
hearing things like this makes my inner socialist come out.
Yeah, they are jointly estimated as the 222nd wealthiest couple in England by the Sunday Times, valued at a total of 730 million British pounds, which roughly translates to about just a bit over $1 billion.
Yeah,
I believe. In
and before we left, we did just have Donald Trump as president. So,
well, like it's funny because Sunak, interestingly, given how rich he is and the Trump comparison, when he first came in as chancellor, remember Boris Johnson won in 2019 with a lot of working class voters who had never voted conservative. And Sunak came in as chancellor, and chancellor has a lot of spending duties. And Sunak made a lot of headlines for being like a forward-thinking kind of populist conservative chancellor, like wanting to spend lots of money, especially during COVID, spend lots of money, lots of social spending that conservatives had typically shunned. And then he got kind of destroyed. That image got destroyed when it turns out his wife was avoiding $20 million in tax through a loophole. But it sounds like that's probably going to be his campaign if he runs again. And also doubly funny, because I don't think anyone's mentioned this, he released a video today to start his campaign, which was clearly filmed in like December. Like the website it was released from was registered in December. So clearly he's been planning this for a while.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Well, look, you know what? Dr. Oz is filming his campaign ads out of New Jersey. Are we really going to criticize Richie?
I'm just saying it's kind of funny because it's like wasn't December when all the Partygate stuff like blew up?
Yes. No, that's one part. Well, okay. When Eric started the show by saying there were two really shocking things that happened in international politics today, and I feel like Boris Johnson's downfall is not shocking at all. It's more the slow death. It's like the slow bloodletting. This has been going on for a long time.
What I mean by shocking is it's shocking that it didn't end up bloodier, as in it could have legitimately ended up as a constitutional crisis where the Queen has to step in and either say, Parliament is dissolved, the Prime Minister said so, or, or basically the other thing she could do. And legitimately, she has the authority to do this. This is an actual role the monarchy has, is deciding who the Prime Minister is. And there are set circumstances where the Queen has her own prerogative here. Normally it is Parliament says, this is who the Prime Minister will be. This is who it should be. The Queen says, yes, Parliament has said this. You are now the Prime Minister. Normally that's fine. And then you have circumstances like this where you have the Prime Minister like, no, I want to dissolve Parliament. And then Parliament's like, no, I do not want to be dissolved. I want a new Prime Minister. At which point the Queen could say, yes, the Prime Minister is right. We're going to dissolve. Or no, Parliament still has confidence the government still has confidence. They just want a new prime minister, and they give Parliament the opportunity to elect a new prime minister or anything in between. Like this is an actual authority the Queen has in these parliamentary systems. This happened in Australia before.
I
for
feel
example.
I feel like there's a flaw here with the British electoral system where the party elects the prime minister, but the prime minister can also decide to dissolve the parliament and call a snap election. Like
Yeah.
that's not a balance of power. That's a conflict of powers.
Again, well, this is effectively the British system is a cobbled together system, salvaging what was left of the monarchy with a legislature that's very powerful, that also wants the executive authority that the monarchy has while still having the monarchy, which still has executive power, and all executive power flows from the monarchy, and technically all legislative power as well. All of this, the Queen technically still has, and in theory could do things with, but it's constrained by it's very complicated. But the general gist of it, yes, is in theory the supreme power in the United Kingdom is the Parliament. That's the supreme power in the United Kingdom in theory, or in practice, I should say. And the prime minister is elected by the Parliament, but in theory, the prime minister is still serving at the consent of the rest of of the
and theoretically that works great, except when the prime minister also has the power to tell the people he's serving, yeah, you're gone, I serve myself now. That's just fundamentally
flawed. It doesn't work out so well, does it?
No, the rough equivalent
the American
here would be
system is fundamentally flawed, but it seems fundamentally flawed in a different way.
The thing is, we could have the same thing happen here. It just wouldn't really matter because all it would be legislative leadership. Like the rough equivalent here would be like if the Senate majority leader was unseated by his party and then declared, no, I'm actually still the majority leader. And then the vice president or the president pro tem has to come in and say, no, you're not. Like that's like the rough equivalent what would have to happen here. Except we don't have that. No, when we have a political crisis, it's because we have a president who's looking at an armed insurrection at the Capitol and is like, yes, this is good. I like this. This is enjoyable. I am pleased with what is going on. Like this
is why the British continue to think they're more dignified than we are. Because like Eric said, our political crisis is a guy actively trying to overturn the government. Their political crisis is a dude deciding to say fuck the COVID restrictions and hang out with some of his buddies inside Downing Street with some beers.
Well, in fairness, like I was thinking about this, people were like making fun of me, but it's like in fairness, the COVID rules in the UK were so absurdly strict.
Yeah, but he's the one who put them in,
and he's the one who put them in, and in the US, like COVID enforcement of COVID rules is like all private. Like if I wanted to like throw a party with my friends, like the cops were like never going to actually come shut it down.
Yes, no, your college could.
Your college could.
But COVID restrictions in the US were basically like the underage drinking laws. Nobody's going to actually enforce them.
True.
Right. And so then in the UK, it was like there were fines and like cops would like enforce it.
The UK actually did it right. If you want to have a regulation, you got to enforce it.
So this is why
America. You think we enforce regulations here, Dylan? Come on, buddy.
I think the whole system is funny because like a lot of countries have this system where there's like an executive who doesn't have a lot of power except like formal power to like pick who forms a government. That way, it's not like a never-ending gridlock. Like a lot of countries have like a ceremonial like president who just like picks who forms a government and also just like I don't know has like some other ceremonial duties.
It's like talks with diplomats.
It feels like there almost
Smiles
needs
and
to be a
waves,
third office appointed by the Queen, like the election minister.
Well, it's not. I was thinking about it.
You're telling me you don't love the election? Imagine if we had an election minister here in America. You know, like me
that
and
sounds
Brad, we
based.
could all get appointed. You know,
that sounds based.
We I actually thinking about it is that pre like mid 2000s we had a similar system with like the Supreme Court where like Supreme Court justices were always confirmed like 100 to nothing, and yet they always wielded like very insane levels of power. But they were always confirmed like 100 to nothing, and no one ever really put like that much thought into it. And so like, yeah, like I mean that like we kind of used to do that too. So now we don't. Now we actually are.
But that's the funny thing is I know I mentioned this in the Decision Desk chat, but like the judges are the closest thing we have to the monarchy here. There's a reason to stand up for the judges. There's a reason the judges are your honor. There's the reason the judges can just declare you violated the decorum of the court and throw you in jail for a week. Like, that's legitimately the closest thing we have. We got rid of the monarchy, but we didn't get rid of the power. We just moved the power to someone else or some some other group of people.
Still have unelected. We still have unelected officials wielding
got a
absolute
2/3
power.
majority in the Supreme Court in 2000 for his Supreme Court nomination.
What?
Yeah, Samuel Alito got bipartisan votes. His Supreme
That would
Court
never happen
nomination.
today.
Yeah, but Neil Gorsuch, Neil Gorsuch way too extreme. Neil Gorsuch way too extreme. You can't have him, but Sam Alito, yeah, that guy's great, awesome, great guy.
God, we should have saved the judicial filibuster for Kavanaugh.
That will go down as one of the worst hindsight moments, in my opinion, is the fact that Democrats just used the filibuster on Gorsuch, who no matter your opinion, is a relatively normie or justice, quite honestly.
Yeah. And when he goes away from the R's, it's either for something that's not going to happen, like overturning Chevron, or it's for something that Democrats would like, hey, Native Americans, we signed treaties with them, we should probably honor those, or gay people, this, like those two things,
Gorsuch replaced
Kennedy.
Scalia.
Scalia, sorry.
Yeah, Gorsuch is an above average replacement for Scalia as far as Republicans go, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Not the worst option we could have gotten.
Where he differs with Republican orthodoxy, it's either in things that are not going to happen, despite me really wanting them to happen, or it's in things that Democrats would actually like criminal justice protections, for example. He sided a lot with Sotomayor and some specific measures in that category.
How many Republican votes do you think Sonia Sotomayor got in her 2009 confirmation? How many? Without looking it up.
25?
10.
25 Republicans.
Oh, no, wait. No votes? No votes or yes votes?
Yes votes. Yes votes for Republicans.
I was going to say 10 or 11 because I think Democrats have 60 seats at that point. So
they did. So, they had 59 at this point because Ted Kennedy had died.
14.
Or was about to die. There were 9 Republicans who joined in. They include Lamar Alexander of Texas, Kit Bond of Missouri. As I go down the list here, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Judd Gregg of New Hampshire, Richard Lugar of Indiana, Mel Martinez of Florida. Lisa Murkowski was a no vote. I just want to point that out here. Olympia Snowe and George Voinovich were the 9 Republicans.
Oh, Susan Collins was a no?
I guess
she was a yes.
Collins?
Yeah, she was a yes.
Yeah,
but no, that's the funny thing is Lindsey Graham is genuinely the last guy in the Senate who's I think the executive should be able to appoint whoever they want for whatever position as long as they've got anger.
Except Brown Jackson.
Yeah, except Brown Jackson. Didn't he? I thought but that was because he still voted for pretty much everyone else. Yeah, he felt screwed over. Yeah.
And then only 5 Republicans voted for Elena Kagan, which is surprising.
Which is crazy because she's that's the funny thing is Sotomayor. Sotomayor was the moderate. She's the principal moderate that's going to come in there, the Republican one. And then Elena Kagan is the ridiculous partisan. She was the Solicitor General in the Obama administration. She was going to be a fiery liberal, the leader of the liberal wing.
How'd that work out?
I got to see Kagan speak at George Mason. Very good. I liked her quite a good.
I liked her. Her opening to she wrote an opening to one of Scalia's book about Scalia's judicial philosophy or some of his opinions. It was great. It's she's really smart. Scalia was when she was appointed, he basically told the Obama administration, you should appoint her. She's really smart. She'd be a great Supreme Court justice. And they were like, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. I'm going to do that.
Wait, one Democrat? Somebody in the chat says one Democrat voted against
Ben Nelson, probably. I would think Ben Nelson, probably.
Oh, yes.
What did Ben Nelson have a problem with?
It was 2010 and Ben Nelson was running for re-election, so...
Yeah, he was weird. He voted for Obamacare, but then voted against the reconciliation, and that pleased literally nobody. Yeah.
Ben Nelson going to the Susan Collins School.
No, Ben Nelson and Bill Nelson are two different things. Ben Nelson was the Nebraska senator. Bill Nelson is the Florida astronaut senator.
Wait, I thought Bill Nelson. Ben Nelson isn't the Florida Senate.
No,
No,
Bill
no.
Nelson is the Florida
Bill-
senator.
that was
Ben
Bill
Nelson is the Nebraska senator.
Okay, got it. Wait, so which one voted against Kagan?
Ben Nelson.
Ben Nelson.
Ben Nelson of Nebraska.
The one from Nebraska.
There you. Thank you. We got through that. Okay, that
the Nelsons,
that
the generic white Democratic Nelsons.
yeah, it's terrible.
I mean, if you're going to be a generic Democrat, at least have like a fun name like Blanche Lincoln. That's a fun name. I like that. That's a good
Lincoln is
name.
Yeah, Kay Hagan, fun name.
Yeah, that's a fun name. That's a fun name. Mary Landrieu. That's at least interesting.
Kirsten
last name.
Cinema.
Yep.
I mean, she's a
Manchin.
Republican, but never mind. Joe Manchin.
But
good
let's,
name.
I do want to we go into a little bit here. Just we have a couple of minutes left here. Some of the Georgia polls, which are interesting. One is that apparently they keep finding children of Herschel Walker. Apparently, this does not matter because he's still leading the polls. More importantly, the
Depending
most
on
recent
who you ask.
Depending on who you
the
ask.
the most recent poll, which is apparently from Data for Progress of all places, had Brian Kemp up 9 points. To be clear, I do not think Brian Kemp will be winning the Georgia gubernatorial race by 9 points. I do think it would be really funny if he did. I would not be against that. That'd be really, really funny.
I don't think he'll win by 9 either.
No, he won't. That would be winning Cobb County back, which is to be clear is not going to happen probably. That'd be
think
very
he could win by
challenging.
6.
Six could be a good win for him. That would be. I mean, I would think it'd still be in the 4 or 5 range, but it is genuinely the funniest that like compared to like the national hype, you are imagine you're Stacey Abrams. You lose in 2018. You spend the next 2 years doing 2 things or 3 things: raising a lot of money, saying you won the election, and basically making yourself a kingmaker in the National Democratic Party. And you're basically credited by everyone for some reason for flipping. Even though most of that voter registration was automatic anyway because of the automatic registration law. Then you spend the next 2 years after that basically running for governor without running for governor. Then before you run, you get like a couple of really dumb scandals. The one I can think of really being like the posing maskless in a room full of masked children. Like that's just the level of opposition you deal with the rest of the year. And then you come into here against Brian Kemp, who beats his primary by 50 points, which no one expected, and you're trailing in every poll. Like, who would have thought this a couple of years ago? I think generally the expectation was Kemp would be one of the most endangered governors in America, given 2020. He's certainly not on that list right now. He's in like if there were 10 governors that could lose, he'd maybe be number 10. But like,
I don't know if I'd put him. I don't know if I'd put him that low.
I might actually. I might agree with Eric here. If you look at the
what are our toss-up governor races? Like if you look at the governor states, Arizona.
But there's no one who could lose. There's no incumbent to lose in Arizona.
Arizona, Kansas, Oregon, Maine. We got Massachusetts is flipping, Maryland is flipping. That's 2. Those are kind of defaults. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania still in the picture. Michigan somehow still in the picture. Minnesota.
Is Michigan still in the picture?
New Mexico, don't forget about New Mexico.
Yeah, New Mexico. Those are 10.
Is Kemp less endangered than like Tim Walz?
I think
you could argue he's at least as endangered as Tim.
I think at this point, Kemp is. I think at this point, the most apt comparison would be Kemp to Whitmer.
I think that's fairly reasonable.
That's fair, I guess. Yeah.
Because I don't think
we have one that leans Republican and one that leans Democratic.
Yeah, I don't think Whitmer's in any danger at this point. The Republican nominees are a clown car.
Hooray!
Republican nominees are basura. It's very not good, very bad.
Yeah.
Did anybody see the story about Rinky today?
Yes.
What did he do now?
What did he call his genitals?
Golden something.
Yeah, golden something to subordinates, basically. Like he was.
Oh no!
Why? Why? Why
I
do we
guess
do this to ourselves?
Be clear, there are 2 Republican parties. There is the Midwestern Republican Party, which is incompetent and nominates lunatics. There is a Southern Republican Party, which is extremely competent and wins almost every race. Which of the 2 are you going to follow?
Well, I think Well, so okay, wait. So in that field, you've got Dixon, who's like a normal Republican. She, I think, is going to win the primary and actually be a strong candidate. Then you have Ryan Kelly, who is under federal indictment for storming the Capitol. Then you have,
Guys, I think you're way too
literal
optimistic
insurrectionist.
for Republicans. I think Kelly's got that locked up.
no, actually, the thing is, Kelly surged in the polls a little bit after he got arrested, which is like kind of sad. But then he's like fallen off really hard. Also, like when you're under federal indictment, your life is kind of consumed by being under federal indictment. So I'm not sure how much of a campaign he's running at this point. So like,
did you see what the lead attorney general candidate said?
oh yeah, wait, she did. That was
the Secretary of State candidate.
Secretary of
No,
State.
I thought it was attorney
All of the
general, the one who
Michigan-
said they would investigate other Republicans.
To be clear,
I thought you were talking about the.
made that whoever wins the Michigan gubernatorial primary is the most rational and sane of Michigan's statewide ticket, even if it's Ryan Kelly. There is a very
the Secretary of State candidate said apparently that she thinks that you can catch demonic possession as an
Oh,
STD.
right.
That was
That was
viral.
something.
yeah.
Good,
and then you got-
good job, everyone. Good job, Michigan.
You got Parna somehow going to
Joe.
lose to Dana Nassel, who, to be clear, Dana Nassel is like the most left-wing, one of the most left-wing attorney generals in the country. This is
Maybe
someone
only
who,
surpassed by Keith Ellison.
she's also literally incompetent in terms of she botched the Flint investigation. Any sane Republican attorney general would be like, you botched the Flint investigation. Nobody is going to jail and could do a good job. But no, you got DeParno, who's
Yeah.
I mean,
hey,
well,
Joe,
like-
honestly, you should be happy with the Michigan slate because they have removed any embarrassment that the Pennsylvania GOP should be feeling right now.
Well, no. You see, the Pennsylvania GOP only did one embarrassing thing. And that was
Exactly.
Michigan might do three. which is
Exactly. Michigan is erasing the stain on your state GOP's record.
Wait,
To
I
be
want to be
clear,
clear. I want to be clear.
I-
That also didn't.
about Pennsylvania actually is that Doug Mastriano is not in. He's not been put in the basement. He's been replaced by a life model decoy because he's not said anything nutty since he won the nomination.
Well,
Pretty-
I will want to point out that he did say after he won the nomination that he was going to force everyone to re-register to the vote. He did
Yeah,
say that
he
after
did
he
say that.
after he was
in the life
re-nominated.
model
after the
decoy
nomination.
show,
So
replaced
he
him.
said one crazy thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is that is on the level of demonic possession.
But yeah, we'd love to go longer tonight, but we got to get going off. Thank you guys for watching. I think this was a fun night overall, despite some of the tragic circumstances of yesterday. I think we had a good time with the show. You like what we do? Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Like and subscribe to our YouTube if you're watching us there. Follow us on Twitter. We have podcast platforms as well. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor Podcasts. I think we're on Google Podcasts as well. You can listen to us there. We really appreciate your support as usual. We'll be trying to. It's not a primary Tuesday, but we may have something for you Tuesday. We're trying to plan something out here, and we will be obviously have Elections Weekly next week on Friday at the same time. But yeah, thank you guys for watching again. We'll see you next week and at Elections Weekly, same time, same place, probably the same crew, except for maybe Kraz. I'm not sure if he'll be able to make it, but we'll be here next week. So yeah, thank you guys.